Hi, everybody. Ezra here in Edmonton. You can see the shadow of the Russian Orthodox Church behind me in the city center of Edmonton. I'm here for some town hall meetings. I'll tell you about those a little bit later. But while I'm in Alberta, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's cooking here. I remember reading Alberta's laws for citizen recall and referendums. I read them during the COVID pandemic because I wanted to look into the possibility of recalling the politicians who were burning down our civil liberties with their junk science and conspiracy theories, rebranding a bad flu as a zombie apocalypse. The amount of damage they did with their lockdowns will never be fully known. We can estimate the financial cost, but we'll never know the full human cost, the cultural cost. You know, I was reading something today that the Mongols invaded what's now called Iraq, called Mesopotamia in ancient days. They invaded it almost 800 years ago. Hulagu Khan sacked Baghdad in the year 1258, massacred hundreds of thousands of people, destroyed everything he could find. And one historian proposed that to this day, agriculture in Iraq has not yet recovered from what was done 800 years ago by the Mongols. I thought about it, and I thought, you know, he's probably right. I suppose it would be like destroying every dam in North America, every irrigation canal, every railroad, every bridge. Some of it truly would never be repaired. I think what was done to our society and our humanity, at least in the foolish West, will still reverberate in centuries. I mean, just look at what happened to the fertility rate, to the mental health crisis, to the drug crisis, to our common understanding of civil liberties, to our confidence in our institutions. Anyways, I'm just musing and meandering. But yeah, it's why I looked into the recall and referendum laws in Alberta, because I was looking at the possibility of using those laws for their purposes, which is to recall, that is to remove atrocious legislators, to force special by-elections. But what I quickly found out back then, and I reported it at the time, was that the numbers of signatures required to start a recall process was impossible. It was deliberately set so high that it could never be done. It was deceptive. It was trickery, wasn't it? To pretend that the Alberta government was democratic and populist, to pretend that it cared about the little people and direct democracy, but to insult democracy and populism by making it a false promise, a trick. Jason Kenney did that as premier, and to their discredit, so did his cabinet. But what he did, and surely didn't realize it at the time, was he put in place the processes anyways. So the law is there. So along came Danielle Smith a few days ago, and she simply revised the numbers to make it a challenge, but not an impossibility. So the process was put in place by Kenney. 177,000 signatures are what's needed for referendum. That's 10% of the 1.77 million people who voted last time. Has to be collected in 120 days. I think that can be done. It's an interesting process. I won't bore you with the technical details, but different groups can propose different questions. It's actually a bit nerve-wracking because it's a free-for-all. The wording is set by the people. And the first group out of the gate that seems to be organized is the Alberta Prosperity Project. Here's their proposed wording that they just announced.
We're there. We could call for that petition right now. But very clearly, we want to win the referendum. It's not just winning the petition. So over time, we will make an internal decision at the level of the board of directors as to when we will submit the petition question, collect the signatures. At that point, we feel as though we're going to be very close, if not at the point of winning the referendum.
That's actually pretty clear and to the point, which is what's required by the Clarity Act in the Supreme Court of Canada. I think they're doing something interesting. They're sort of pre-signing a lot of people up so that when the official clock is started for the 120 days, they have a banked number of people who are ready to sign to get a head start. I'm probably not describing it properly, but they're really trying to be strategic about it. I think that's going to happen. I think they're going to get their 177,000 signatures, probably 200,000 or more, just to be safe. But I think there's going to be problems, or if you prefer, challenges. I mentioned on the show the other day the massive defamation. You're about to see total deplatforming of anyone of any public stature or standing who dares to weigh in on the side of Alberta. And by that, I don't necessarily even mean of Alberta separatism, but even people who think the referendum itself is a good idea, or those who think Alberta could use it as a bargaining chip, sort of the good cop, bad cop thing that Quebec has had for 2 generations with their separatist referendums. I mean, you can already see what they're trying to do to Danielle Smith just for allowing the referendum. She's not even promoting the yes vote. She's essentially said she'll vote no, but she's still being smeared as a traitor nonetheless, even though it's Quebec's precedent, Ottawa's Clarity Act, and the Supreme Court's blessing. Speaking of Jason Kenney, I see that he is once again calling people who disagree with him, in this case, people who support a referendum, even in his own former party, the United Conservative Party, he's calling them crackpots. That's the language he used during COVID when he turned against the people, also started jailing pastors. It's not seemly. It's always, he seems more interested in what Ottawa says than what Albertans say. He's a pick-me Westerner trying to ingratiate himself with the Laurentian elite. They'll always hate him, but he keeps trying. I don't know who his client is. That's an important question to ask because he's in the private sector now. Look, I understand wanting to be part of Canada. That's the whole Reform Party ethos the West wants in. I've been part of that same movement for 35 years, but don't sell out your own people for the acceptance of some Ottawa politicians and journalists. Now, there's going to be a lot of trickery. I'm really worried about that. Remember the 90 or so fake candidates who registered to run against Pierre Poilievre in his Nepean Carleton riding? Expect a lot of that kind of trickery. Lots of false flag operations. Do you know what I mean by that? Literally, it could be a flag, like the fake Nazi swastika that someone took a picture of at the trucker convoy, but no one who was there actually saw it. It was fake. It was just used to discredit the movement, just like the fake lapel buttons that the Liberal Party dirty tricksters spread around at a Conservative convention this spring. They were trying to smear Pierre Poilievre, even though it was the Liberal Party who made the buttons. Expect a lot more of that, times 100, and not just from the Liberals. I mean, remember how Doug Ford, who calls himself a Conservative, kept undermining Pierre Poilievre during the federal campaign? He and his surrogates probably attacked Poilievre 5 times during the campaign, and they continue to do so. Look for a lot of that. And in fact, I'm certain that Pierre Poilievre himself will at least bar his MPs and staff from supporting independence in the referendum. I mean, it makes sense. He is a federalist, and the Conservatives are a federalist party. But realize what that means. The federal Liberals and the federal Conservatives will be against this referendum. The provincial NDP opposition will be, of course. The provincial United Conservative Party will be neutral as a party, but I imagine individual MLAs are free to join one side or the other. Every legacy media outlet, there might be 1 or 2 journalists at the Calgary and Edmonton daily newspapers who are permitted to be neutral towards the referendum, or at least fair. But I'm worried that the newspaper company itself, Post Media, will most likely be officially against it. That decision will be made in Toronto or perhaps their New Jersey headquarters. They own the Calgary Herald, Calgary Sun, Edmonton Journal, Edmonton Sun. It'll be interesting to see how much freedom their reporters will still have. Same with the local talk radio stations. But everything else, everything based in Toronto, will be on the warpath. Already are CBC, CTV, Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, just to name a few. You'll have some independent media that are supportive, like the Western Standard comes to mind, and I like them, but they still don't have the reach of those old media. Get ready for more interference from foreign entities than you've ever seen in your life. I mean, don't be surprised if other Canadian governments interfere with massive campaigns, both official and unofficial. I mean, Mark Carney's Feds, the Ontario Tories, of course, Quebec, they wouldn't want their milk cow to leave the country before they're done milking it, would they? But I'm talking about other countries too. Who wants to keep the oil sands undeveloped? Well, who would want it to stay under Mark Carney and Stephen Legault's governorship? Well, most of OPEC and Russia, I imagine. I don't know where China would stand on the question. I don't know where the U.S. would either. On the one hand, they might think that Alberta independence would be a stepping stone to joining the U.S., and they'd want that oil. But then again, maybe they don't want that oil. Maybe it's a competitor to U.S. domestic oil and gas. It's tough to say, but that oil is worth trillions. And as Alberta goes, probably Saskatchewan goes a year or 2 later, and then other provinces might go too. The stakes really couldn't be any higher. And so expect the dirty tricks to match it. By the way, that's what I'm doing out west. Tonight is our town hall meeting in Edmonton, and Wednesday night is our town hall meeting in Calgary. Both events have sold out, about 800 tickets altogether. People want to talk about this. By the way, if you want to know where I stand against Ottawa's war on Alberta. I stand against Mark Carney and against Stephen Guilbeault and the other eco-extremists who want to put eco-tariffs on Alberta to kill its jobs. You see how I use the word tariffs there? Or trade barriers like blocking pipelines. But isn't that what they are? What was a carbon tax other than a tariff on Alberta oil? All this huffing and puffing about Trump's tariffs in Ontario, I mean, fair enough. I agree. Don't punish Ontario. But isn't that exactly what the feds have been doing to Alberta for 45 years and promised to continue to do? So, yeah, what's that phrase? Elbows up? Team Canada? Eliminating internal trade barriers? None of it was true. Don't think Alberta doesn't know this. Danielle Smith is clever. She says she wants to negotiate with Carney a better deal for Alberta. If she gets a better deal, the referendum will probably fail. But if she doesn't, it just might succeed.